Hey there everybody, it's Mike DiLisio with another solo mode review. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the solo mode for Burgle Brothers 2 from designers Tim Fowers and Jeff Krause and publisher Fowers Games. Burgle Brothers 2 is a follow-up to Burgle Brothers, and in this game you are playing members of a crew that are trying to pull off a heist in a casino. So let's head over to the table, I'll show you how the game is set up and how it plays, then we'll come back here and I'll give you my final thoughts. Okay, the first thing I wanted to show here was the actual physical makeup of the box as it is kind of transformed into a dual layer play area for Burgle Brothers 2. The reason why I'm showing it like this, without any of the other tiles or pieces that are going to be shown here in just a moment, is that I'm not going to film this review using this actual setup here, where this is the actual box that the game is contained within. And there's a couple of reasons why. Number one is that I do have some issues with the production of this that I'll talk about when we go into my actual review. And second is that it doesn't necessarily film great. But just so I can show you, this is the box of the game. You basically have these legs, which can be removed, and they're placed into this area here. You roll up the two mats, they go there, and you've got game trays that you can place the rest of the components within, and a little spot where you can place the tiles in as well. All right, that all sort really nicely, and then when you close the box up, you've got a sleeve that kind of keeps it together, and there's the box. Okay, but again, for the purposes of the overview, I'm going to show you these two mats side by side. So let me get that all set up and I'll be right back. Okay, now we see it just about completely set up for the way that I'm always going to choose to play it, which is basically the two floors side by side. This is floor number 1 and this is floor number 2. It is a semi-randomized setup on each floor. I say semi-randomized because there are certain tiles that you know are going to be on floor 1 and certain tiles that you know are going to be on floor 2, and everything else is randomized. For example, you know that the safe is going to be on floor 2 along with at least one monorail and one elevator. There's going to be a monorail and an elevator on the first floor along with the, I believe it's called the owner's office. Okay, and so you have a somewhat of an idea of what's on each floor, but the majority of the tiles are going to be randomized. You also have these chips. And the reason why I didn't complete the setup is I wanted to kind of show you how this works. Once you've got the tiles that are put face down, you now are going to place walls. And you've got 8 walls on each floor. And you could place them anywhere you want. The only restriction is that you can't completely close off a tile. And so I try to spread them out as best as I can, and that's what the rule book recommends, is that you keep them as spread up as possible so that you're not making too many difficult paths for you as you try to negotiate your way around these casino floors, okay? And so these tokens were placed out according to this kind of patrol card that the bouncers are going to take. And so you'll notice that these dots are going to represent where the chips are, and this D1 represents the starting position of the bouncer there in this particular setup. And the same thing over here where the tokens match where it says, and the bouncer is on C1. And now, I've chosen to play as the hacker and the hawk, okay? And I could have played as a number of different characters. We've also got the rigger and the spotter, the acrobat, Raven, the rook, juicer, and Peterman, okay? And each of them has gear cards that are specific to them, okay? And you can see based upon the little avatar down there at the bottom. And so I've got the 3 starting gear cards for each character there. The backside of those, oops, not that. The backside of those characters also are kind of like player aid cards, and it shows you what you can do. All right, so to finish this up, to get started, what we have to do is basically we have to enter the casino. We got to break in, all right? So we have to choose 2 corner tiles of the first floor as our entrances. And so I think what I might do is place one here and one here. And one of my characters is going to come through first, okay? Now, you get 4 actions per turn, okay? you can move, you can peek, you can use the room action, or you can prep gear once per turn. And then for a free action at any time, you can use whatever gear you might have prepped. So the first thing you're going to do is choose one of these entrance tiles and enter it. Now that doesn't count as one of your 4 movements. So let's say I just go ahead and I flip this one over. All right. This is the escalator. Interesting enough. Now, this has information on it. So as one action, I could spend it to jump to the tile on the other floor in the same row and column. And so essentially, I have found my way to the second floor. It's going to lead me right there. So for my first action, if I wanted to, I can go ahead and go to the second floor. But I'm not going to do that. Oh, I did forget one thing. Before I would have done all that, I would have done one more card on each one and chosen a destination marker for the bouncer. So in this case, the destination marker is B2. And then on floor 2, the destination marker is A3. Apologies for that. Okay, so now it was all set up. All right, so now I'm here. I can do 4 actions. If I want to move, I could just move into an adjacent room. I can't go through a wall. Or I can peek. I can take a look at what's on the tile and potentially, if there is a token there, what's on that token. Now, what's interesting about these tokens is that some of them only trigger when you peek, and some of them only trigger when you actually move into them. All right, so let's say for one action, I'm going to peek. I'm going to take a look. So the first thing I do is I flip this over. It is a prima donna chip, all right? And so I would refer to the chip glossary, and it says they activate if you peek into their tile, but they're discarded if you move in. So I peeked, it's activated, and so what you do is you jump to the tile with this chip and then discard it. So I immediately jump there. That was my first action. It says, while here you cannot peek. If you end your turn here, make a commotion. I'll explain what a commotion is here in a moment. So I now cannot peek at either of these 2 tiles because I'm in the count room. It won't let me do it. So maybe for my second action, what I'll do is I'll move to this tile. All right. So I flip it over, move in. It says, when you enter, if you have less than 4 heat, make a commotion. So you know what? I get to show you what a commotion is right away. A commotion is you immediately move the destination marker to that spot and you move the bouncer 1 space towards you. That's not great. All right, so now for my third action, that was, let's see, 1 was to peek. It jumped me there. Second action there. Third action, let's peek here. This is the drunk tile, and it says it activates if you enter, but discard it if you peek, so I discard this. Otherwise, I would have had to jump over that. Table games. When you enter, roll 2 dice. If you roll 7 or 11, lose a heat, which I don't have. Otherwise, make a commotion. Look at that. I rolled a 7. That's amazing. I never would do that if I was actually playing the game. If I had a heat here, I would have removed that, which would have been great. If you ever get 6 heat, you lose the game. All right, so let's say for my fourth action, I prep one of these gear cards. All right, and so I have all of these cards that are specific to me. They all are going to do things that help either move either bouncer to any tile adjacent to their current tile, not through walls, or place the out of order token, which is this, looks like this, on any face-up tile. That tile has no effect for the rest of the game. Remove all counting cubes from cashier cages, buffet, or surveillance tile. Those are different tiles that come up around the board. So let's say that I went ahead and did this radio interference. Now I have that prepped and ready to go. Once I've taken my 4 actions, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the bouncer, and they're going to move towards their destination marker, and they have 3 movements. So he's going to go 1, 2, and now since he's reached his destination, we flip this over, and now we move it to A4, which is down here, and he's going to move towards that, and he has 1 more movement. He moves into my spot. That immediately gives me 2 heat, all right? And I'm 1/3 of my way to losing the game, all right? So that's how it's going to work. You'll take your up to 4 actions, then you're going to activate the bouncer. They're going to move around. Then you would take your turn with the hawk. The hawk could enter here at the escalator. She could enter up there if she wanted to. If, let's say, for example, I did have her enter there, and then for her second action, I moved her to the second floor. I flip that over. If you have less than 4 heat, make a commotion. That's not terrific. Already this bouncer is starting to move towards her, and then I'm moving around here. So what ultimately are you trying to do? What you're trying to do is you're trying to find the owner's office here. So let me kind of flip these around just to kind of, oh, here it is right here, the owner's office. When here, you can spend an action to move a die from here to the safe. Well, the safe is going to be on the second floor. So once you've found the safe, and now I probably should have set this up so I knew exactly where it was, but I was not that prepared. On here is the safe. There it is. Once you have found the safe, okay, you can spend actions to roll dice to crack the safe. All right. So let's say that I had been getting dice placed onto this owner's office, because there's another place where you can put dice on the owner's office. Now I'm just flipping these over now so you can kind of see what they look like. All right, so let's just flip these over. Some of them trigger when the bouncer enters. They can create commotion or heat. Some of them can give you heat when you enter, depending upon how much heat you have. Pools will allow you to draw pool events, which, like this one, swap heat with the next player. There you will also find a lounge here. There's a lounge, so you can draw a lounge event. The destinations, or the bouncer sets his destination to the current player's tile. Okay, so you can see these all kind of trigger little actions. Just showing you all the tiles here. All right. So now you can see it's a bit messy because I've just kind of been flipping them over, but you can see the different numbers and types of tiles that are going to be there. Now, how do you get dice onto the owner's office? You do that by finding moles throughout here. There's a mole, okay? And when you find a mole on that tile, you can spend 2 actions to place a die on the owner's office, okay? And then once you're there, you can spend an action to move 1 die from there to the safe. So let's say, for example, that I was here, I had all 4 of my actions. I could spend all 4 of them to move them to the safe, all right? And then let's say, for example, the hawk was here. When they're there, they can spend an action to roll all of the dice and then return 1 to the owner's office. And what you're trying to do to crack the safe is you are looking at the numbers on the lower left of the tiles in the row and column of the safe, okay? So here I see 3, 5, 5, 4, 5, and 2. So 2, 3, 4, and 5 are the numbers that need to be rolled to crack this safe. So for 1 action, I roll the dice. I have a 2 and a 5, okay? So what I could do is take the cracked tokens and I can cover up all the 2s and the 5s in those rows and columns. So there's a 5, there's a 5, there's a 2, and there's a 5. Okay, so right now, all I need is a 4 and a 3. So I rolled all of these, I placed 1 back in the owner's office. If I had another 3 actions, I can keep trying to roll. I still need a 2 or a 4, so that would go back. I'd keep rolling. Still didn't get it. Let's assume I did, though. Once you have cracked the safe, if you have, and before you've lost all your heat, then what you're going to do is you're going to go to your finale, okay? And in this case, we've got heist number 1, which is the bodyguard. Once you've done that, you flip it over, and it's going to give you some setup, some rules, and what it takes to win or lose, okay? So there are a number of different heist finales in here, and I'm not going to go through too many of them because I don't want to spoil things, but there's 9 different heists in here, all right? And depending on what it tells you to do, it's going to kind of change up the win or loss conditions, all right? And what you can do once you've hopefully won or lost is you can pick up some rewards. And what these rewards might be alternate forms of gear for you, okay? And so in later games, you can get some different gear that kind of change things up. Also, it's going to change your suspicion level, all right? We start at 6, which means that you add 1 distracted card into the first floor deck, which basically makes it a little bit easier. You can move the bouncer around a little bit more. But as you win or lose games, you're going to move up or down the suspicion meter. That's going to allow you to kind of change up the difficulty of the game. You're going to move on to the next heist no matter what, whether you win or lose. So you're going to progress through these 9 heists in this campaign. You could also play it with random campaigns. If you've already gone through all 9 or you don't want to play it as a campaign, you can do it with a random finale and still play the game through that way. All right, that gives you an overview. Let's head over to the table and I'll give you my final thoughts. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a pretty good idea on how the solo mode for Burgle Brothers 2 works. And really, this is a pure co-op game. So basically everything that I showed you there applies to the multiplayer game as well. It doesn't change at all. I tend to play with 2 characters when I'm playing solo, but you could run more characters if you wanted to do that as well. First thing I want to do is talk about some solo benchmarks. These are some big things I consider when I'm trying to decide whether to take a game off the shelf or not. The first thing is a win-loss condition. Is there a clear win-loss condition? You playing for a high score variant? And in the case of Burgle Brothers, this is a clear win-loss condition. You are trying to complete your heist. You've got a safe you're trying to crack. First, you have to find the safe. You have to do a whole lot of setup to get there. Then if you can crack that safe, you've got a finale that you are trying to complete. And that's a big difference between Burgle Brothers 1 and Burgle Brothers 2, is that to be successful, really, you're trying to successfully complete that finale. So, clear win-loss condition. Setup and teardown. Now, there is a fair amount of setup in this game. I need to be honest about that. It takes a bit of time to set it up. You've got to get tiles set up in a particular way. You've got to get the bouncer set up. You've got to put out the walls in the way that you feel comfortable with and put out the tokens. So it takes a bit of time to set up. But I feel like the experience that you're getting is commensurate with the amount of time to set up. So I don't have a huge issue with it. Also, there are some nice game trays that come with the game that make setup and teardown a bit easier to manage as well. Rules are another thing I like to discuss, and the rules in the game I feel like are well done. They're clear. I didn't really have any ambiguities that I can remember that I can have that I had in going through the rule book. There's nothing specific, again, to the solo game in the rule book because it's a pure co-op. So the game plays out the same whether you're playing with other people around the table or if you're running multiple characters yourself solo. All right, art and components. And here's where we get to a big kind of crux that I have with the game. This is both the best aspect of the game and the worst aspect of the game. And let me explain what I mean there. Art-wise, this is fantastic. Just as the original Burgle Brothers was, the art by Ryan Goldsberry is charming. It is bright and colorful. It is stylized. I love the look of both Burgle Brothers 1 and Burgle Brothers 2. The wooden components are very nice. The play mats that are used for the floors, very nice, stitched, thick, happy with that. The quality of the cards are great. The component-wise, everything is really, really good, above average, except the main conceit of setting up the box as your second floor. It just, for me, doesn't work. It's too flimsy. It does not feel like it's going to hold up well. It bows in the middle. I know that there have been some discussions of you can place little tokens in between the kind of the joints of the box to make it bow less in the middle. A, you shouldn't really have to do that. And B, it just still doesn't feel like it's worth it. It's a clever gimmick. It's cute. I get what they were going for, and I kind of wish that it had pulled off better. But I just think functionally it doesn't work very well. And so when I play the game from now on, I always just play it with the 2 mats side by side. And you know what? It works great. If you like the box and it doesn't bother you, then go ahead and go for it. It certainly gives it table presence. There's no question about that. But I think on a functional level, it just doesn't work well to use the box as the second floor. And I just lay the mats out and it works exactly the same. And I still think it looks great on the table. So that's what I really want to make sure I point that out about the box, because it just misses for me. All right, so for the overall solo experience. Now, I like Burgle Brothers, the original game, quite a bit. To me, this is an improvement over the first game in just about every way. And so, to me, this takes an already good game and makes it better. The changes that they made, I feel like were all for the better. It's so much easier to kind of run that bouncer. The bouncer is a breeze to administer. I like the decision that you have to make now between peeking and moving. Those chips are going to act differently depending on whether you peek into the room or whether you move into the room. And I like that. I feel like that's a great little decision to make. I feel like the difficulty is just right on this game, and I like that they now have this suspicion meter that now makes it very easy to kind of manipulate the difficulty of the game. And if you lose a particular game, now the suspicion meter goes down and you have a little bit of an easier time on your next heist. and you continue to move through these heists in this campaign, this 9 heist campaign. I really like that these finales add nice little twists to the formula. I like that new gear that you get, the alternate gear that you can either choose to use the original version of the gear or that alternate version, that's good. All of it is great. I really like the changes in the game. I felt like it took an already solid system, made it smoother, more elegant, more easy to run, and you could really focus on the decisions that you're making. It's tough. It's tough to win the game, but it doesn't feel unfair. It doesn't feel arbitrary. Certainly there's luck involved. Anytime you're flipping over random tiles and random tokens, there's going to be luck. But I feel like there's enough way to mitigate what you're doing, those gear cards, things along those lines. You can really pull off some clever plays in Burgle Brothers 2, and it's all the better for it. All that being said, I think like this is a game I can easily recommend as a solo game. I'm giving it an 8 out of 10, a seal of approval, a high seal of approval. I feel like it could have been even better, honestly, without some of those little production issues that I mentioned, specifically that box just doesn't work. I feel like people are going to want to use it. They're going to want to use it because it's such a cool idea, but in practice, I just don't think it works very well, so I had to knock it off a little bit for that. But gameplay-wise, it's really solid. I can easily recommend it for people that are fans of cooperative games, and especially if you like this theme. All right, well, that's it for me. This is Mike DiLisio signing off from Dice Tower headquarters.